My friend called me up last week asking me how he can make money on YouTube, and I asked him what's wrong. He told me that he hates his corporate job and that he's so miserable and that he absolutely wants to get another job, but nobody will hire him somewhere else. And all this really sad bullshit that I'm hearing from him. And you know what? It got me thinking about when I quit some of my jobs and how I did it. So I want to talk to you about that conversation and share some insights with you. So, this is how to quit your job. All right, thank you for joining us on the China On podcast. I'm your host Chris, and this episode, I want to share with you a couple of the ways that I ended up quitting some past jobs. Now, this came about from a conversation I had with a buddy of mine, and look, all joking aside, no, he's not my friend, and yes, he was being a little bitch, and so he calls me up and he's saying, "Hey, look, I'm at this job." I knew as soon as he called me and said, "Hey, how do I make money on YouTube?" I'm like, dude, well, first off, you're not gonna. And second off, what's really going on in your life right now? And so we talked through, he's working at a job, it's a corporate job, and he's not happy in it. And I've been there before. I've worked at a big company and just been fucking miserable. And one of the things that we talked about too, the natural next question is like, well, have you looked for other jobs? And then the answer is, I've been looking, but you can't really find anything. There's nothing out there, all this kind of stuff. But I could tell by his voice, I knew that he was in that pit of despair, that spiral that keeps happening as you go through this. So, to the best of my recollection, I'll describe that feeling that I felt. It's this general sense of malaise, like it's hopelessness, because when you're working at these companies and you're just kind of a cog in the machine, and you go through and you try to do things well and you try to put things together, and then it gets zero response and nobody really cares, you start to feel this feeling of despair. And it is hopelessness because you don't see a path forward. And when you start to look at what your day-to-day looks like, especially at these kind of companies, it's monotonous. You have no fucking clue why you're doing the things that you're doing. You're not sure if you're bringing anybody real value. You don't know if you're selling people BS, if you're actually helping them, if you're just helping your boss who's got some sort of ego problem, meet whatever his thing is that he needs to do. And it can take a toll on you. And what happens too is you start to take that and apply it to all other aspects of your life. So that meaninglessness and that hopelessness, then instead of just being your job, but then you leave your job and you're super happy and all this kind of stuff, like you bring that into whatever else you do. So you stop looking for paths forward in other parts of your life. You stop looking for those paths forward in the things that you want to do. If you really enjoy something and you do it and that's your hobby and things like that, you're going to stop doing that as much. Unless you're one of these people that, I don't know how you can do this, but there's people that can just go in, they literally compartmentalize it, they shut the rest of their brain off, they do the job, and then they leave, and they're totally fine with that. If you can do that, this is not for you. Shut this off. You're not allowed to fucking listen to the rest of this. I will destroy your brain, so don't do it. Keep whatever you have intact, whatever's sitting there, whatever perfect little world that you've got there, keep it there. This isn't for you. But if you're sitting there going like, oh my God, I hate every single day. Every single day is the same. I don't know what I'm going to do. You're in a bad spot. And what'll happen too, if you try to go find jobs from that space, you're going to bring that with you. You're going to bring that same shitty attitude wherever you are now, you're just going to bring that to wherever you go. So you look at this searching for a new job. I'm going to get a new job. That's going to be the thing that frees me. And that's what's going to change my life. And that's where I'll find true happiness. And I won't be so miserable and I'll be out of this place. But if you don't make the change beforehand, you're just going to carry that same bad attitude wherever you go. And then that's even worse because you're like, why do I still feel this way? I left the bad, evil corporate America to free my mind, and now I still feel like a fucking loser. It's because you didn't change anything. You didn't prep anything. And one of the things when you hit this point, you kind of have a choice to make. You can either stay there, and if you feel this way already and you stay there, what's going to happen to you is you'll sit there for 3, 5, 10 years, and that'll go by. And if you're hitting this point in your career, you're probably somewhere between 25 and 35 years old. And so now just take it and say, okay, if I stayed this exact same course for 10 years, what does that look like? And that time is just going to disappear. And one day you're going to wake up and you're going to be 10 years older and you're going to be equally as fucking miserable. And then you're going to look back on it and go, I knew this feeling 10 years ago and I didn't do anything about it. And I just sat there and I complained and I wallowed in my sadness because I didn't want to make the choice to actually make a change and go do something else. So that's the danger of staying. Now, so those really are the main downsides of staying. What's the other point that I had something else that I wanted to say about that. But anyway, maybe it'll come back to me. But like I said, you do bring yourself wherever you go, you bring that same version of yourself to the next thing. So you're at this point, you hate your job, you know you want to make a change, you want to leave, you're looking for other jobs and it's fruitless and there's so many jobs and LinkedIn is swamped. And LinkedIn is swamped. It is. I tried before I got this job, I was reaching out to recruiters. I didn't hear anything back. And you'd be like, hey, I've got I see that there's these technical sales roles. I have all this experience. And they're like, oh yeah, but do you code Python and also understand Chinese? It's like, no. It's like, that's going to be critical for the role. What does that have to do with selling customer success software? It's really important that you have that. It's what stands out. And then you're like, what the fuck is this lady talking about? And then you look on LinkedIn and it says 1,000 other applicants have applied in the past 24 hours. And you're like, all right, well, this is pointless. So you kind of, the game, it's all stacked. It is stacked. So there's a couple ways that you can quit your job that I've done. I've done it the wrong way, and I've done it, I guess, one way I definitely did it the right way. The other way, one of the two ways I'm going to tell you is like, it's an option. It is what it is. So the two ways that I would recommend are either set a date that you want to quit and do the best that you can, or office space it where you just don't give a fuck and you just kind of smile and nod and agree. And there's going to be different approaches at different companies and at kind of at different stages in life. And it also depends on the opportunities that you have available to you. So I'll talk about the most positive one. This is one that you can actually use if you are miserable. I was in that spot. So I give you the real world scenarios, and I'm going to say the names. I won't say the names of the people because they were not bad, and they were honestly right to be critical of me. So take that as part of this. But I used to work for Enterprise. I worked in I was working at multiple places. I had been on the bottom of these different matrices and sales things, and I was just constantly like missing opportunities because I was like, I don't want to sell this. I don't believe in this product. And I ended up getting pushed out to the Punta Gorda airport, and it was miserable. Like we did a lot of work. It was hard work, but I was miserable, and I was always trying to make the music work. I had other dreams that I wanted to do, and I was always late. I was late 5 to 10 minutes every single day. I always got the job done, so I at least had that where I got the job done. I did it well, and I was the best assistant manager like that I could be, and people relied on me and they enjoyed working with me. So I had that going for me, but the other stuff I didn't do well. So what I decided to do was when I decided I was going to quit, I knew that if I was just going to bring this like puss face attitude to the next place I went, I'm going to carry that with me. So I said, I have to make a change, but I need to get out of here. So I set a date. It was about 2 months in the future. And I said, I'm going to start looking for jobs now, but over the next 2 months, I'm going to do the best work that I possibly can. I'm going to give it my all. I'm going to come in. I'm going to be on time. I'm going to make sure all these reports are done. All this stuff is taken care of. We're ahead of the schedule. We're all good. And so those 2 months I focused on, let me do as best shit as I possibly can. People might not like it. People have maybe already written me off. It doesn't matter. I'm not doing this for them, and I don't care about them or what they think. I'm doing this for me. And so since I switched that around and I'm like, I'm going to do the best I can so I can leave, and when I leave, I'm going to carry that new version of myself to the next place. That helped a lot because it got rid of that hopelessness and that meaninglessness and that never-ending spiral. Because when you're in that spot, it's like, where is the end? I'm looking down at this abyss. Like, where does it end? There is no end. And so rather than sitting there and in despair and wondering when this misery is going to end, I was just like, I know when it's going to end. It's going to end at this date. I'm getting the fuck out of here. But first, I'm going to do this. And so it helped because as I started to look for jobs, I was going into those interviews and things like that and doing the job searches and reaching out to people. I had a new sense of energy because what you don't realize right now, if you're starting this and you don't make that change, when you reach out to jobs, when you go through interviews, you're gonna be like a dud, and you're gonna talk to them and be like, I'm really excited. I feel like I'm the best candidate for the job, and I'm just I'm a team player, and I get out there, and if you look at my projects, here's all my SMART goals. Here was the situation. Here was my measures that I took to it. Here's the actions I took. Here's the retarded things that I did, and here were the final tactics that helped me make it all happen. And so like you go through and you carry that, so when you're interviewing the people, like, I don't want to hire this guy. Like, he's a freaking dud. And even if that person knows you and they're going to be like, I don't really feel comfortable referring him. And so you're going to get emails or calls back like, yeah, I don't know what happened. The position kind of, the thing. And they'll just kind of write it off. And you'll never get a clear answer. And so the spiral continues. And it seems more and more hopeless. And there's less and less options available. And all of this stuff starts compounding. So first, you got to make that change. Decide I'm going to leave at this date. Do as best you can and go forward. And it fucks with people's heads. So like before I dude, I was such a fucking shitty employee. So before I left Enterprise, I was in a band, and I would show up late all the time. And one of the things that really a couple things led up to it. One day I was supposed to open the office at 5 a.m. so like a important customer can get their car rental and all that stuff. And I showed up to the branch at 7:30. That didn't go over well, really by any stretch. And then another time, I was working the night shift and we had a show that night. And my plan was, let me get everything settled here. I'm going to get all these cars lined up. I'm going to make sure the rental agents are all good. And I'm going to go down to Fort Myers and play this show. And then I'm going to come back and close the branch. So had all this planned out. We go, I get them all set up. I go down to play the show. And then the band that we were playing with was like, hey, we actually have a show that we have to play after this. We need to play first. So we're going to go on first. I was like, fuck, dude. Okay. All right. That works. So they played. They had a good set. We get on, we set up, and then we're playing the show. And I'm just watching in hindsight, I forgot about this, but somebody just kept pointing to the microphone like this. And I didn't know what it meant. So we just kept playing. And we just watched an entire crowd of people just leave over the course of our set. Within 15 minutes, just the entire crowd was gone. There was like 3 people left, and there were, I don't know, 70, 80, 100 people there before, something like that. And what happened was we had a passive speaker system, and the cables came out. And a passive speaker system means that the power and the sound go through the cable, and somebody knocked it loose. So our sound was just cutting in and out for our entire set. So nobody could hear us. We would be like a full band loud for 3 seconds, quiet for 3 seconds, full band. So I have that going. That's the situation. Like, fuck. And then I'm like, all right, it is what it is. They have to close the branch. And then then this lady sends an email that was working there, was like, hey, we were so swamped that Chris was nowhere to be found, all this stuff. And then I got, sat down and talked to, like, are you really into this? And all these kind of things. So I was basically written off, and then I get sat down by my boss's boss and my boss's boss's boss. I get a memo, like, and so by the time I got the memo, I had decided I was going to leave, and I had decided I'm going to do as best as I can. So they sit down thinking this conversation is going to be like, they're going to have to like yell at me to really get this through my head. And they sit down, they're like, you were late this time. You went and played a show. Like, what the fuck is that while you're supposed to be working? And you did all this stuff. Like, we're giving you a memo. Do you understand why we're giving you a memo? And I was like, yeah, because it undermines everything about the team, the leadership. It sets a bad example. It lets people think that they can do this. And it really puts people in a bad spot. And they were like, yeah, that's exactly it. Okay. And like, I knew I fucked up. Like, what was I going to be like? Well, actually, like, I really like music, so you guys should let me play music. They don't give a fuck. They got to run a whole business. So, so then they went back to my boss at the time, who's now my wife, and was like, hey, we think Chris is ready for the next step. We think he's ready to like step into management. And like, so that's what happens is you just make that switch, and then people notice it. But I wasn't doing it for them. I wasn't doing it to grow. I wasn't doing it to move up in the company. I wanted to make a change, but I knew that I had to do it. And that was kind of a cool proof of concept, because you like, over at a certain point, you're like, all right, well, I know I'm leaving. I don't really give a fuck, but I want to do well. So it was funny confirmation of that. But it helped, because when I went into my next job, I started with the right mindset. Now, the other way that you can quit is to do the office space. And I've done this as well. And that is more of an approach. I think right now, with so much stuff being remote, it's definitely an approach that can work better remote. And it also works at a company where, like, it's kind of a bigger company. The leadership they're not really connected to what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. Like, either they're not connected to it, it's somebody that gets put in there, so they don't really understand what your day-to-day job is, so they don't understand what goes into it. And when they talk to you about it, you'll notice things like they'll say things that don't actually make sense in reality, but they sound nice on paper. Like, things like, this isn't an exact term, but like, if people use the word synergy, and you're like, that makes no sense, it's just an indication that they don't know what's going on. And this is probably the better way to use the office space method. And that the office space method is really to just kind of like go through somewhat of a malaise, kind of agree, smile, nod when things come up and it's like the dumbest shit you've ever heard of as solutions to bigger problems. You're just like, that I hadn't considered that, and let's explore our options. So you can use that lack of knowledge, or that it's almost it's just it's not dumb, it's just like ignorance. You can just kind of use that to push things around. I'm not recommending to do this like all the time. If you find yourself in this spot all the time, then you've got a problem that you need to address. But if you're miserable at this company and you're like, all right, I need to start looking for a job, but I'm really worried that I'm going to get fired in the next 2 or 3 months if I don't do what I need to do. If you have that situation, you can office space it. You don't have to do that great at your job when these meetings come up. If you're in meetings all day long because somebody needs to tell the team about what the board said about this thing, but the board needs to know that we're bought in and the board wants to change the commission structure and we need to hit 140%. But excuse me, boss, how do you have 140% of 100? Well, because when you take into account multi-year deals and then you apply this percentage, then it comes out to 140, and then divide that by 0.76, and that's where it comes down to, and then you get that here. And you go, oh, wow, okay. I do appreciate this idea where I'm going to work twice as hard and I'm going to get paid 40% less. I do see where you're coming from on this. Let me think about that. Let me think about how I feel about this approach. And why don't we circle back next week? I really like the direction that this is headed. I don't know that I love the details of it, but I like where your head's at. Would you be open to some feedback and things like that as I go forward? And I want to really make this work. And so you can flip it. So it's just one example of a way that you can office space the situation. It just buys you some time. People will think you're bought in, all that kind of stuff. I know I sound like a prick and it's like you're lying, but if you're miserable and you got to go, do what you got to do to buy that time, get your head right, and go on to the next thing. That's my main advice about this. And again, set a date to leave. Like, set that date. If you don't have a date that you know you're going to leave by, the cycle will just continue. And then you're actually going to be in a troubled spot, because when they find out you're office spacing for more than 3 months, then you're going to get fucking fired. And then you're going to be in a bad spot. But look, if you're miserable, you got to make a change. Because like I said, you're going to wake up one day and be like, my whole life has fucking passed me by. These 5-10 years that I could have been going and doing something else, it's just gone. And look, there's plenty of jobs out there. I had a podcast where I interviewed 50-something people that were business owners in Southwest Florida. Every single one of them's like, we need to find good people. We're dying to find good people. It might not be the exact job that you're looking for. You don't necessarily have to settle for a job, but go out, use your network, use your referrals. Like, go on LinkedIn. If you've got LinkedIn, start connecting with people. Just do research on jobs, and then go look at the employees list. If you go to a company, you go to people, and then you scroll the list, connect with the president of the company, connect with the HR, and then connect with a person that might be related to what you do. Connect with all those people, and then fucking call that company on the main line and see if you can talk to that person or find their email address. Like, people are okay with that. And also, look at the flip side. What if I bother that person? Well, if you were going to be one of 100, 500, 1,000 applicants on LinkedIn, dude, take the chance. I had somebody when I was applying for these jobs, which was on their behalf fucking stupid. Like, it was stupid, but they were like, hey, I appreciate you reaching out to each person from the company on LinkedIn. It was a small company, but they're like, you need to go through our proper channels, and for that reason, we're disqualifying you. It's like, dude, I'm applying for a director of sales position. Like, you want your sales director to just give up after, like, it doesn't go perfectly the first time? Good luck, guys. That's fine. So that's the way that you got to flip the script of, hey, I'm miserable here. I have to get out. I got to do something. Let me find something. I'm going to fail. I'm going to have shitty interviews. I'm going to talk to people and be like, what the fuck did I just say to this woman in New York City that's the hiring manager that I thought she would appreciate that I checked out her posts? And now that I've spoken to her, I'm not sure if she is even a real person, if this was just an AI thing, or if she even made that post, because she had no idea what it's about. So you're going to run into all these kind of situations. Keep working it. Go back, talk to old employees that you used to work with at other companies. Talk to employees who used to be where you are and then left. Go find out what they did, what that transition was like. Just start calling people. Dude, when I was starting to look for this new job after I stopped doing my company, I must have called in 1 month or 6 weeks. I probably spoke with 100 different people. And some of them were jobs that I didn't want, but I went and took the interviews anyway. And some of them were, hey man, I'm looking for a new job. I'd love to take 15 minutes. Can I tell you what I'm looking for and see if anything comes to mind? And if you can, you'll get enough people that will say, yes, I'll help you. Especially if you haven't done anything where you burn bridges or things like that in the past. People will actually help you. They want to. So go out and try that approach and see what happens. But you have to change yourself first, and you have to commit to it and work towards it. It's something that you gotta, like, within a week of making that decision, like, you gotta be on the other side of that misery. And when you set that date that you're gonna leave, fucking stick to it and tell yourself you're sticking to it. And it doesn't mean like take a shitty job within a week. Give yourself 2 months, 3 months, whatever that might be. Because what it does is it takes you out of this downward spiral of never ending abyss and despair and I don't know where my life's going to be in 10 years, all this stuff. And then it just goes, okay, let me focus on where I'm going. And now you start to look at the world instead of looking down into the hole. You start looking out at the landscape and seeing what the real options are. Like, okay, this company's here, that company over there. I saw them at a trade show. You can go to trade shows too in your industry, see what companies are out there and tell people that you're looking for jobs. I did that. It ended up getting me 2 different interviews. So you can go out and see what's going on and look at your skills and start to actually put your resume together, start looking at what you've actually done, what you've accomplished, what value you've brought to people and what you like to do. And if you can do that, when you start to talk to people, you go like, oh, these guys have a director of sales position. And some companies don't even have the positions open. That's kind of better sometimes because then you're not fighting applicants. But you can go to companies and be like, what's a main problem that you need to solve? Well, we're a small company. We just finished this software build for a single giant customer, but now we want to go roll this out to other people. Well, that's perfect. I've sold software in the past. Here's what here's what I've seen works. What challenges are you guys running into? We're running into this, this, and this. Okay, can you give me a demo of the software? Okay, they give you a demo of the software. So tell me, guys, when are you guys looking to hit certain goals? What backing do you have? If you can turn it into a sales process where you're the thing that's being sold, but you are selling yourself to whatever job that is, but take it through a real sales process. If you need to learn about sales, do that, but go through, find out what they actually need help with, and then see where your skills come into play and where you can bring them value. because that's how you get out of this freaking application shit. It sucks, man. It does. Searching for a job now sucks. It really, really sucks. And it's like I'm one in a million. I get it. I was just there. So I don't have a perfect solution for it. But some of these other things, tap into your industry, go on your LinkedIn, look at who you're connected with, go through. If you don't have any connections, start building it. But if you can go through your LinkedIn, find who you've connected with, reach out, call them up is better. If you've got their phone number, call them, text them, whatever it might be. But you can shoot LinkedIn messages as well. Just get in contact with these people. That's the main thing. So I think to summarize, all right, summarize where you're at. You're in this pit of despair. I get it. And you want to change your job, but if you don't change yourself before you try to change your job, you're probably not going to find anything good, and you're just going to bring that same shitty attitude. So set a date, start working your ass off, and do good at your current job. While you're doing good at your current job, start searching, reach out to your referral network, find out on LinkedIn, find out who you can talk to of people that might have job opportunities for you. And while you're doing that, just keep getting better at what you're doing, knowing full well that on this date or around this date, very close to it, I'm going to leave. This is my end time. I don't have to deal with this misery anymore, and I'm going to be fine. But if you try to just and hope that another job will come along, but the economy sucks or that the job market sucks or all this stuff, guess what? Your life's going to suck. And then every time you talk to somebody, you're just going to talk to them like this. You're going to have no joy in your life. And you're going to just sit there like this, knowing full well the worst part about the whole thing will be that this whole time you knew what the problem was, and you just decided not to make a move or live up to the challenge and live out your actual full potential, and you can just mosey around and mope like this. If you want to do that, be my guest. If you don't want to do that because it's bullshit, and it's bullshit, and you know it, so don't do that. Or I don't care. Do whatever the fuck you want. But that's my advice. And if you didn't ask for it, well, there you go. It's there. So one of the things that I want to do with this is I want to hear from you guys. Let me know. Reach out to me, www.podinbox.com/chineon, or go to the website, chineon.com, and send us a text message or email us, whatever it might be. But get in contact with us. Share the way that you quit. If you've got a funny way that you quit a job, let us know. Or if you got a recommendation, if you think this is the worst advice ever, then let me know that too. I disagree. I think this is great advice. It's tremendous advice. But yeah, I really do want to hear from you. We've got a ton of shit, and I'm drinking this little freaking mushroom hot cocoa powder, and we're having a good time. And also, if you guys think we should make some merch, let us know. My buddy Matt made this a while ago, and they're pretty cool. So, all right, everybody. That's it for me. I'm out. Peace. Bye-bye, bitches.